Good morning. I'm going to talk today about an alternative method for starting on buprenorphine that's known as microdosing, also known as the Bernese method. So, some time ago, in 2016, some Swiss researchers, doctors, so from Switzerland, in Bern, which is why this is called the Bernese method, we're trying to help some people start on buprenorphine who just felt sick when they started, or whatever. And so they, rather than using the traditional method where you start relatively high doses of buprenorphine to get people adequately treated as quickly as possible so they get out of withdrawal, they thought that if they just gave incredibly small doses of buprenorphine, gradually increasing every day for a week or so, 5 to 7 days, that they could get people started on buprenorphine and have them actually not stop using whatever opioid they're using. And that actually turned out to be pretty good. And so that's not something that I typically do, because I've had pretty good success over the past 14 years just with starting people with the traditional induction method, typically at home nowadays. But you can still do it in the office. But with fentanyl becoming increasingly common, fentanyl actually is what's called lipid soluble, meaning that when you take it, it doesn't just stay in the watery part of your body in the blood. It actually gets into the cells and into fat and that kind of stuff. So because of that, it has a very high kind of volume of distribution, they call it. It just really kind of like spreads out in your body quite a bit. And so in that way, even though the strong effect can go away pretty fast, because it kind of distributes, the volume of distribution, it just kind of goes into everything, into your brain and every part of your body that's fat in it, which is a lot, cell walls, whatever. Then it kind of like leaks out of your body back into your blood, and so it can take some time to get fentanyl completely out of your system. And so if it's still there a little bit and you start the usual induction method with buprenorphine, you can have precipitated withdrawal. And so I've had a number of patients who are using either heroin that has a substantial amount of fentanyl in it, or just straight up fentanyl, and it can be difficult to make the transition from that over to buprenorphine. So using the microdosing technique, where you use very small doses, the doctors from Switzerland used 0.2, which is like 1/10 of a 2 milligram tablet, and then gradually increase that up. So that, or an eighth or a quarter of a 2 milligram, but a very, very small dose, lower than we would normally use. And for most people, it doesn't have any effect at all. But if you have receptors in your body that have the fentanyl on them, you can just start a very small amount of buprenorphine on a few of those receptors, and the next day a little bit more and a little bit more, and just kind of gradually push the fentanyl or heroin or whatever off of the receptors over several days. And then pretty soon, the majority of receptors have buprenorphine on them, and you haven't stopped using, but now you're blocked, and you can stop using heroin or fentanyl or whatever without having to go through any withdrawal whatsoever. So this might be, for a lot of people, a better technique. Just committing to, I've had a lot of patients, I guess, over time, where that taking your last dose at 6 at night and then starting buprenorphine at 9 in the morning is just too difficult. At 15 hours, they just feel terrible or whatever, and at 1 o'clock in the morning they use, and it just makes everything more difficult. So for them, this microdosing technique may be better, where you can gradually, kind of get started on it. And it just gives us another tool to use to help people who starting up has been difficult. We've got all kinds of different ways to do it. We got tablets, we got films, we have shots, we've got different ways to start up on it. There's just lots of different ways to help people out. So if you've been struggling to get started on buprenorphine because it makes you sick, or whatever, the flavor's the wrong, or the dose is wrong, or just you can't get long enough time to get in enough withdrawal to make the transition without precipitated withdrawal. Or if you have a friend who says, oh, I tried buprenorphine or Suboxone and it made me sick or whatever, you know, there's new ways to do it. There's basically no barrier nowadays to getting started on buprenorphine. It should be easier and better. We just have new options. Last year was a tough year. The CDC, I think, came out with their estimation that 87,000 Americans died of overdoses, primarily due to opioids in 2020. That's a big number, way more than the previous record, which was 2019, which is a record over 28. You know, it's just consistently hitting these very high numbers of overdose deaths. Opioid dependence and other substance use disorders is a life-threatening illness for a lot of people, and we should treat it as such. Get help, and let me know if I can help you out. Thanks so much.